Okay, so that will be all for the sine cosine graph. Okay, I think last question was the hardest one. Okay, so in your homework, it will be a mix of easy ones and hard ones, maybe one or two questions that you need to do the change. Okay, now do you remember that we also went over the tangent graph? For tangent graph, they don't do too much on the transformation, okay? So basically they just do a slightly change of it's not as complicated as sine cosine. So just make sure you know the shape of the original tangent, okay? So the table for original tangent is a bit different, right? It still has the same x value, but then for the y values, you will have 0, right? You start with 0 and then NA, right? And 0 and then NA and then back to 0, right? Using the 3 cross, all right? So that's for the Y value is different, okay? So let's look at how to transform the tangent one. Same thing, we can write out the A, B, C, D, okay? So please write it out, A, B, C, D. So for tangent, it will be similar, right? A and then tangent B x minus C plus D, right? That will be the ABCD form. Or you can call that the general form. Okay, once you got the ABCD, please raise your hand. Should be pretty easy here. All right, Donna, can you tell us ABCD here?
Negative 1, 2, 0, 1.
1, okay, perfect, right? There's no C here. Usually you will have C value if there's an X plus, right? Or X minus something, right? This one, it doesn't have that. So the C, you know, it has to be 0. All right, so now let's go to the story. What kind of reflection do we have? Trudy? Do we have reflection here? Trudy, do you know?
Sorry.
Do we have any reflection for this tangent graph?
Over x-axis.
Very good.
Wait, no.
Okay, if A is negative, it will be over x-axis. Right? If B is negative, then it will be over y-axis. Right? Because with the x, reflect over y. Okay, with y, reflect over x. Okay, now for S, because tangent is different from sine cosine. Okay, so for S, we don't talk about the amplitude. We don't talk about period. Okay, we just write out the regular stuff because it doesn't have amplitude, right? Only sine and cosine have amplitude. So for S, we are just gonna talk about vertical, like the regular story. Okay, does it have vertical expansion or compression? William, what do you think? Does it have any vertical expansion or compression?
Yes.
How do you know? What kind? What kind of vertical?
Expand.
How
Wait, does that work? Because of the B?
Is B affecting X or the Y?
Oh, it's affecting X. Never mind.
Yeah. Which ones are affecting the y?
A and D.
A and D, right? So which one has to do with the vertical expansion compression?
A.
A, okay. So here we have A of -1. Is that expansion or compression?
No, it's neither.
Neither, right? Very good. Okay, if it's 1, it doesn't change. The negative just tells you reflection, but if it's 1, it does not change, right? If it's bigger than 1, it will be expand. Between 0 and 1, compress. Remember that, right? From the story form. So this one has no vertical expansion or compression. Okay, what about horizontal? Do we have any horizontal expansion compression? Cindy?
No, yes.
No and yes? Which one?
Um,
What do you mean no and yes? You can only pick one.
yes.
Yes, okay. Then what kind? Horizontal what?
Expand.
Expand by what?
Two.
By 2. Horizontal expand by 2. Okay, what about you, Iray? What do you think?
Horizontal compressed by half. I don't know.
Horizontal compressed by half. Okay. How about Tiana?
Horizontal compressed by a half.
Horizontal also compressed by half. Donna?
Horizontal compressed by half.
Okay, Cindy, do you know how they got horizontal compressed by half?
Yes.
How?
The period.
Well, this one we don't talk about period, okay? Because this one is not a sine cosine graph. There's a period, but we won't think about the period. We just think about the story form.
Oh.
How do we get the half? Think about the 2, right? 2, if you have 2x, you can write it as x over half. Do you remember this part, Cindy? When we write it in story form,
Yeah.
right? You have to move the number underneath. Then that number will be the number you use to describe. You see a half, so it's actually horizontal compressed by half. Okay? So of course that will affect the period. Okay? Tangent also has a period. Anybody remember what was the basic period for the tangent graph? Does anybody remember?
Pi.
Pi, right? Used to be pi. If you forgot, let's take a look, right? These are the 3 basic graphs. Sine is 2 pi, right? Cosine is also 2 pi. But for tangent is pi, right? Very unique. So used to be pi. Now because of the compression, then our new period will become pi divided by b, which is 2. Okay, so the rule is still works, okay, except you have to take pi to divide by b instead of 2 pi, right? Because we're talking about tangent. So for tangent, this is the formula to get the period, okay? For sine and cosine, you need to use 2 pi divided by b. Okay, this one we don't use size of space, okay? So none, because that's only for sine and cosine graph. All right, last one, translation. Which way are we moving? Eric? which way are we moving here? What is the translation?
Is it phase shift? No, there's no phase shift.
Yep, phase shift.
Vertical displacement of 1.
Yep, vertical displacement of 1. Very good. Vertical displacement of 1. So we are moving up by 1. Okay. So to get the point, right, for the y value, there's not much to do, right? Remember the y value for tangent, it starts with 0, undefined, 0, undefined, 0. Right? And then the original x, right? Let's take a look, okay? Because this one is very new. The x value will be the regular one, right? 0, pi over 2, pi, and then 3 pi over 2 and 2 pi, okay? So copy that over there. 0, pi over 2, pi. Once you get to pi, it's already a period. You already finished one period of the graph, okay? If we draw up to 2 pi, then that's like 2 period. Okay, now to get the new x values, remember we can use the period, right? Because all the period is cut in half, or you can think about it as horizontal compressed by half. So all your x value has to multiply by half. So this one will be half of the original. Okay, so instead of pi over 2, we'll cut in half. So pi over 4, cut in half again, right? Cut in half. Okay, and then reflection over x-axis. That's affecting the y, but however, because the y value, they are all zeros, right? So 0 times the negative is still 0. Okay, so the only thing that affects the y is moving upwards. Okay, so we are gonna change all these zeros into 1. Okay, because we are moving up by 1. And that's all we need to do, right? Because there's no vertical expansion, right? Okay. Any question up to here? Can you show me hands if you understand how we get the table? Samantha, do you understand the table? Okay. Usually the tangent, they won't give you too complicated stories. Okay, you just need to know how to do the new period and make sure you get the asymptote at the right places. So now let's plot the points. We can make the scales on the x first, okay? We can call here pi, 2 pi, pi over 2, cut in half, right? So, and then you can start by drawing the asymptote, okay? The ones that has asymptote means you get undefined, right? So you get the first undefined at pi over 4. So this is the asymptote line. And then the next undefined place is at 3 pi over 4. So that's over here. Right, this is at pi over 4. 3 pi over 4. And then the points that you have, instead of 0, 0 to start, we have 0, 1 to start. So this is at 0, 1. And then pi over 2 is also at 1. And then pi is also at 1. Okay, and then you just follow the same pattern, right? Because there's no reflection. Oh, there's a reflection, right? Reflect over x-axis. So think about this one, original. Original, it starts from 0, 0 and go up. So if there's a reflection over x-axis, it has to go down. Okay? So let's go back. So instead of going upwards, we need to make it go downwards. Okay? That's what it means by reflect over x-axis. So everything flips. Right? So up to there, up to pi over 2 is the period. Right? After that, it's just a copy. Right? So it will repeat the same thing again, go down. And then this one is the up. Right? That's the second period. Right? Sometimes they will ask you to draw more. Then you continue to draw more periods. Okay? If they say, okay, please draw 4 periods, then you draw a couple more. Okay? So there's another one. Right? Let's draw one more period. So the next asymptote should be at another pi again, right? So that will be, let's draw the scales. So another asymptote, right? So that will be here. So this will be the third period, right? First copy is here, second copy, third copy, and then the fourth one, right? So within 2 pi, you can fit it 4 times. So sometimes they will say, please draw the graph from 0 to 2 pi, okay? So you have to draw everything up to 2 pi. So make sure you got your asymptote at the right places. Okay, so if you have finished the graph, can you please raise your hand? Okay, so last thing is to summarize everything that we did today, okay? So we covered quite a lot, okay? With the translation, and then sometimes the x value, right? Especially how to get an x value. That's the most unique part. So let's write it down, okay? We have a summary here. This is the methods for you to go from function. Function means they give you the y equals something something, right? That's called a function. They give you the function and then ask you to get the graph, okay? So from function to graph. So they will give you something like a and then function. Could be sine, could be cosine, right? Could be tangent, right? Let's just write sine and cosine, okay? And then b, x minus c plus d, right? And then if it's cosine, it will look like this. So your first step, what do you think the first step we need to do? Okay, think about everything we've done today. What do you think should be the first step? Tiana, how do we begin the question?
Figure out A, B, C, D.
Yes, very good. Okay, so write out, first you got to change it into ABCD form. Okay, write, let's write again. Okay, rewrite in A, B, C, D form. Okay, which I call it a general form. Okay, this is called the general form. So once you get the ABCD form, you need to find the values of ABCD, right? Values for ABCD. Okay, so that should be all in first step. Okay, you write it in the form, find the values for ABCD. What should come after that once you get ABCD? William, what do we do next?
Get the story.
Yep. Okay. So we need to get the story. Story we need to talk about in detail a little bit, right? So next we need to talk about the story. So we have R is reflection, right? Reflection, you look at negative signs. Okay, so if it's negative with the A, then that will be reflect over y-axis. Negative with B, negative with A is reflect over x-axis, and then B will be y-axis. Okay, we have example of each one. And then for the S part, we have amplitude. Okay, how do we get amplitude? Eric?
You do absolute value of A.
Yep. Okay, so write that down, equal to absolute value of A. And how do we get a period? What's the formula? Donna?
2 pi over absolute value b.
Yep, very good. Okay, so this one is for sine. Okay, make sure you sine cosine. Okay, so this one is for sine or cosine. Now the period can also be pi over b. This one is exclusively for tangent. Okay, for tangent you have to use this formula. All right, so you can write or. All right, after period, we have one more thing. What is that, Cindy?
The SOS thing.
Yep, SOS. And how do we find that?
Period over 4.
Yep, so you take the period that you found, right? Sometimes it doesn't change. If it's a new period, then you divide it by 4. Okay? But we don't talk about SOS for tangent, right? Only for sine, cosine. Now, finally, we have T, right? Translation. We have two kinds. The first kind of translation is called what? Kelly? What's inside the translation?
Phase shift.
Yep, very good. Phase shift. And what controls that? A, B, C, D, which one?
A and D.
No, phase shift is only the C.
Oh.
Okay, you can look at the last example. We have phase shift of 2, right? So that comes from C. C is telling you to move to the right by 2. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So phase shift is only C. And the other thing is what, Irae?
Vertical displacement.
And what do you look at?
D.
Yeah, displacement is for D. So we have A, right? A is here, right? B for period, C, D for translation. Okay, now we got all the story. What's the final step? What's the last thing we need to figure out? Trudy?
You find the points.
Yep, find the points, okay? Table of values. So X and Y, we use different ways, right? Different methods. How do we find the y values? Cindy?
AY plus D.
Yeah, you are the expert on y now, okay? y plus d. Okay, now for the x value. William, how do we get the x values?
Start with C.
Okay, start with C, then? And then what? What do we do after starting with C?
And then add the SOS after, like from C.
Okay, so use SOS. Do we always add?
No.
No.
How do we know if we need to add or subtract?
Y-axis, if it's reflecting over.
Yes, okay, so here we'll just add a remark. Okay, so over here, add an extra note. Reflect y-axis, and then you put a question mark. Okay, you ask yourself if there's a reflection over y-axis or not. If there is, you need to subtract, right? If there's not, then you just keep on adding. Okay, so this is just a quick summary, but of course there are some detail you need to practice, right? Through the homework, and then you can strengthen your memories, okay, and skills. Okay, any questions? If you have questions, you can stay after class, okay? I will upload the homework later. And also this Saturday, if you are registering for second term, you need to go to Palmer, okay? I already upload the file, the detail on registration, okay? Did you guys see it? Can you show me hands if you saw it? William, did you see it?
Is it in Google Classroom?
Yeah. I upload.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. So later you can check. If you cannot see it, let me know. So it will be this Saturday. Okay. So you have to go there, register, then you can get a second book. Okay. So I'll see you next week. All right. Bye bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
Jason.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
My mom has to work.
Your mom has to work.
Yeah.
Okay. So you cannot.